Hey everybody, this is Nathan McNair, one of the co-owners of Pandasaurus Games.
And I am Molly Wardlaw, the other co-owner. We were so excited to be here for our very own little Pandasaurus Alliance open house game day.
Yeah, really excited. Thanks for taking the time. We know y'all are really busy, and we're going to make sure this is really worth your while. Molly and I are going to be walking you through some of our new releases for the year, either just released or I think one is just released and everything else is coming over the next couple of months. So really excited to show these games off.
Yeah, newness. We're super excited. One note before we move along. If any of y'all have any questions at all, our amazing marketing manager, Danny Lowe, will be in the chat. So just hit her up with any questions you have. If it's something you want answered right now, let her know and we can talk as we're going along. We will have a little bit of a Q&A at the end as well. Last note, due to the global shipping situation, which I think most of y'all are familiar with by now, some of our street dates have changed a little bit. We'll be talking about those as we move along. And if you have any questions on that too, just ask Danny.
Yep. Cool. So I think the first game up that we're going to be talking about, or Molly's probably going to be talking about, is going to be Brew.
All right. I think the slideshow may be a little off because we're showing Trek 12 right now.
Perfect. There we go.
All right. So this is Brew, first game up, little game we're very excited about. So in Brew, these seasons are completely cattywampus and you are trying to brew potions in this magical little world and attract very cute little animal companions to help you bring that chaos back into order. So the game, very smart, a lot of cool dice manipulation, worker placement, a little bit of tableau building. In general, just lots of stuff going on. One of the things that is very relevant to y'all about Brew, this was released in just July and has been met with incredible excitement. Reviews are wonderful. And just to throw out some numbers, we have sold out of 13,000 units of Brew so far, which is wonderful. And it really seems like this game is resonating with all of y'all, all of your end users in a way that's really cool. So
yeah, so Molly mentioned Brew just came out. It's supposed to come out a little bit earlier, but you know, everything's a little delayed this year. But it's a $29.95 SRP, plays 2 to 4 players in about 45 to 90 minutes, depending on player count and you know, how familiar players are. And Molly sort of mentioned the gameplay. It's really cool. One of my favorite mechanics is when dice have multiple uses. And so here you kind of roll dice and you use them in kind of one of two ways, either as a worker and a worker placement game, or in this kind of hybrid area control resource management game that you then kind of build into this super tight engine. Molly mentioned the reviews are going really well. It's a 7.3 on Board Game Geek, which is really good, especially at this weight class of game is kind of what we expect, kind of that family plus. This is a really good game, very high player interaction. This is a really fun game to play with families. It encourages a lot of table talk, a lot of like, you got me sort of, you know, back and forth where, you know, you really have to pay attention to what other players are doing. But the artwork is obviously very lovely. I think that's what drew everyone's attention to it before they played it. But what we're encouraged to see is continued sales and continued demand and continued pull through. Obviously talking to y'all is how we know how sales are going, but usually if we're getting reorders from distributors like Alliance, it means that y'all are selling it and y'all are trying to buy more from them. So, you know, really encouraging early strong sales.
Right. We have been sold out of the first print run almost immediately, actually prior to release, and then selling through already an additional 4K reprint, and we have more coming in. So it's all good.
Yeah. So stock should be available. Alliance just got some more in. I know there was some allocations out the gate. It should be available. If it's not now, even domestic shipping is a bit of a mess right now, but it's on the way. So check with your Alliance rep. The game should be available. We have a little bit more in stock on our end, and Molly mentioned we have more coming this year. I suspect that as we get closer to Christmas, it may be a little bit harder to find the game, but for right now, it's really in supply. So just make sure that you're talking to your rep, checking on their supply levels for this one to make sure that you can keep it in stock through the holiday season.
One last note on Brew. We worked really hard to get the price point to a very competitive level. You can see this is kind of a fraction of what's in the box there, but there's like a whole lot of game, a whole lot of coolness in this box for the $30 price point.
Yeah. Cool. So the next game up is a game that we've got coming out on September 1st, which is The Loop. I am not going to try to pronounce the designers' names because Danny will make fun of me later. It is some of the design team that was behind Draftosaurus. So obviously they've got a really good pedigree. But The Loop is a cooperative game. It is, you can kind of see in these photos, really cool table presence, large wooden player pieces. This cool, it's not really a dice tower, but kind of looks a little bit like a dice tower that shoots cubes out in the center of the table. In The Loop, you're all fighting against Dr. Foe, who's sort of a mad scientist trying to take over the world by cloning himself and going back and forward in time to basically change the timeline so that he's ruling the world. And you're all time agents that are teaming up to fight him in all of the timelines. And it is just such a clever game. It plays with time travel in this interesting way where the loop is literally, you build a little tableau of cards, like a little programmed engine where you get cards in a row that you're going to execute. And you're able to loop back through those and kind of like go back in time and play the cards back in order over and over again. And so you're trying to build an order of operations that's going to allow you to continue to do really well. $49.95 is the SRP. The game is hit our warehouse 2 days ago, so we're shipping it now out to distributors. So September 1st is the street date. Depending on where you are, it may take a little bit longer to get to you, but we're working to get it out the door as fast as we can. Getting really good reviews. Rado called this the best cooperative game that he and his wife have played since Gloomhaven, which is very high praise. We have brought in a decent amount of stock of this. The reviews are continuing to come in. They're glowing. This game is an 8.0 on Board Game Geek right now with about 500-ish reviews. It came out French first. One that we're really, really excited about. As far as like a weight class, if you're talking about who this is for, if you've got people that have been playing Pandemic and they're looking for something a little bit more challenging, this is definitely a step up. I would say it kind of slots in between Pandemic in complexity and Spirit Island. So it's a little bit easier than Spirit Island, but much like Spirit Island, it's a difficult game. So you've really got to work together to beat it. But it does come with a lot of different modes. It has a story campaign in it. It's got ways to play the game that are a little bit easier, ways to play the game that are a little bit harder, unique player powers. So every time you play the game, it will be very different. Like I said, this is one that I think is very safe. It's the reviews have been so strong. Mm-hmm. And honestly, even the price point at $50 SRP, I think you can look at the weight class of the game, and this is in the weight class of a lot of games that would be in the $60 to $70 price range. And you've got these really cool table presence and components. So that little dice tower I was talking about is you put cubes in there and it shoots out. So it's kind of a randomizer about like where bad things are going to happen.
We always like to let you guys know about really special games. This one is very, very pussy. Yeah. Put an asterisk on that. Like Nathan mentioned, reviews, incredible. Tantrum House loved it. Watch It Played had it in their hottest games. It is something that is brimming. We have sold prior to release more than 7,000 units. Definitely keep your eye on that and order now, because this is one we're almost certainly going to be out of.
Yeah, and this was, just to be very transparent, like Molly mentioned, this is one we got in an order. It was delayed at the factory. It's very unlikely we're going to get more stock this year. So we're not trying to like put pressure on you, but we're just being very transparent that it will probably be early 2022 before we're able to get more from the factory. So it may be into February or March of next year, realistically. And, it depends what's going on. globally at that point. But we're not going to get more in this holiday season is the long and short of it.
All right. So next up, I believe should be Wild Space. So Wild Space is another fun little import game we have coming out. This one also is done very well in France. We like our French games. Beautiful, beautiful game, as you can tell from the artwork. It's a tactical card game. You're doing some cool action selection tableau building. And what you're doing is you're trying to build the greatest awesome. I mean, look at these guys' team in the entire galaxy. As you add more and more team members into your ship, there's going to be some really cool knock-on effects, some really fun comboing, and you're trying to basically be the best in the universe. I think the universe, but really fun, really clever. This is a great game for families with kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, and still very, very fun for gamers. One note of release with this one, it's actually going to be September 8th. So a little bit of a change. The SRP is $29.95, and again, reception on this one, it's also been very good. And there's some fun little. I call them meeples, but cool space elements to it, as you can see here.
Yeah, so this is a really clever little game. I won't talk about the gameplay again because Molly has, but it's one of those things I like when a design has a component or a resource that's got multiple uses. So this has a little bit of that Race for the Galaxy feeling where you're going to get these cards in your hand that you can either add as a team member or use to spend in order to as a currency to play. And I always like when a game has very simple rules where you're not having to remember 15 rules on how to play the game, but you're having to make difficult but obvious decisions. So sort of that you immediately understand like, oh, I want to play this card, but it's going to make me spend all the other cards in my hand to play it. But I also like this other card. And it's something I really like about Race for the Galaxy. And I would say, this is, to me, a little bit of a simpler game than Race for the Galaxy, but scratches that same sort of itch where you've got to really think about how am I going to spend my resources? Do I want to play this card? Do I want to spend this card to play a different card? And immediately obvious decision making that I think is I really like when you get that vibe of what the game's about immediately. Molly mentioned the release date is going to be on September 8th. The $20.95 SRP. This plays 1 to 5 players, so it's got a solo mode, plays up to 5, so that's a nice spread. And again, it's a game that you can easily recommend to somebody who's been maybe playing games. Maybe they've already got Ticket to Ride from you. Maybe they've got Machi Koro, The Mind, those sorts of games, and they're looking for what's a little bit more than that without being too much. And this one on stock levels, we've got a little bit, but we don't have a lot. And this is from the same factory as the Loop. So it's kind of in the same boat where I don't suspect we're going to get more this year. And that takes us to our next game, which is Dinosaur World. This is a standalone game. It is a kind of quasi sequel to Dinosaur Island, which has been one of our best sellers. We are delivering our Kickstarter as-ish we speak. I think it's going to start shipping in the next couple of days. We have this in stock already. We're very solid on the New Street date, which is going to be September 29th. So this one's actually going to stick to what we thought. We're going to have this out at Gen Con. So we're going to be building a lot of hype, a lot of buzz. This is a big game. This is not really more complicated than Dinosaur Island, but it's very different. It's a different mechanisms that go into the game. It's going to have a lot of evocative feelings of the original. Same price point at $59.95. And I have to say the components in the box for the price are just incredible. Like when you set this up, it is table presence for days. We've got heat transferred see-through dice. The dice in these photos are prototypes, but it's the same sort of dice that you get in Dinosaur Island. We have 3 different shapes of Dino Meeple. They're big. They're really cool. They are a lot of tiles in the game. Like when it's very hard to overstate how big the table presence on this game is. And I think at the price point, people are going to be extremely happy. The game itself is really, really fun. In it, you're still building a dinosaur park. It's kind of set in the future after the old companies in Dinosaur Island went out of business, and new companies are coming in because the old companies, everyone got eaten and they had to close because of lawsuits. So new companies are trying their hand at running a dinosaur theme park. What's neat about this one and is different is when you're building your park, the location of things matter. So you're actually going to be putting tiles next to other tiles that give bonuses. So it's got that same like getting DNA, spinning DNA to make dinosaurs that you get in Dinosaur Island. But as you're building your park, you have to think spatially about a puzzle of sort of like, where are you going to go? It still has some worker placement, but the workers are now specialized. So if you can match the worker type to the action you want to take, you'll get some bonuses for doing so. You also you go on a little Jeep tour. So you actually get a Jeep.
The most exciting part.
It really is. And you put your passengers in it and you drive them through the park, and wherever they go, it's going to activate and get points. So you really have to think through what do I want and where do I want to put it in my park to maximize the points. So really nice. It's an amazing game.
The attractions on this are hilarious and really, really fun. A lot of them involve dinosaurs.
Yeah, it's a lot of good bad puns, just like we had in the last game. So this is one that I think is obviously circled for us. Did really well on Kickstarter. That's being fulfilled now, and we suspect it's going to be a big hit into the year.
Just a note on that with Kickstarter, this did do over $1 million on Kickstarter. So we do think this is going at the same trajectory of Dinosaur Island, where you have all those people freaking out talking about it. So it's a really good time for it to be in y'all's stores as people are hearing about it and running out to get it.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Next up, we have another Dinosaur Island game. So this is Dinosaur Island Roar and Write, as you can see. So this is the first roll and write set in the Dinosaur Island universe. So very, very evocative of Dinosaur Island. You are getting DNA. There's awesome dice. Note that this is prototype dice here. These are the really beautiful amber DNA dice, and they are swappable. It's really cool. So yeah, so it's super exciting. So in it, you're going to be getting your DNA, you're going to be making dinosaurs, you're going to be adding attractions very similarly, but it plays totally different as it's a roll and write. So just as far as level, this is going to be meatier. So it's going to have the feeling of Dinosaur Island, like again, kind of weight of roll and write of cartographers or anything else around that level. So this is something we really wanted to make like a love note to gamers who love Dinosaur Island, love roll and writes, and we're so excited about this game. It is also coming out, still sticking to that 9/22 street date. So SRP is $29.95, and again, really, really low levels of this guy already. That's actually true with both of our Dinosaur World and Dinosaur Island Roar and Write. So jump on that if you're wanting those fun Dinosaur Island games now.
Yeah, and with both of these on the stock levels, we have more coming in. So we were aggressive and we pulled the trigger on a reprint before the first printing left because we sort of started getting nervous about stock levels. We will have some more in, I would say in October-ish is my best guess. Again, it's going to depend on what the shipping lanes are doing, but we should have more of this game in October, but not a lot. So again, if it's a game that I think makes sense to bring in, both of these are obviously aimed more at your core gamer audience, and not that a family couldn't play it, but they're definitely both a step up from some of the other games we're talking about. And Molly mentioned Roar and Write it's a really cool game. If you've played Dinosaur Island, it's going to be immediately familiar, but very, very different. You're going to be literally drawing your park on the board, drawing pins for dinosaurs. If you want, you could poorly draw a dinosaur into your pin, but that's not actually a requirement of the game.
Don't lose points in your head.
Yeah, but it's a really nice game. You're going to be hiring specialists. You're going to be building buildings that give you powers, that upgrade your park, that make it more exciting, that let you do more. You're going to have to manage your security levels the same as you do in Dinosaur Island by either building fences or upgrading it. And what's neat is it's kind of got a quasi tetromino puzzle going on where you're having to fit different attractions in it. So, there's one of the things I really like is in every game, there will be 3 specialist cards and 3 special attraction cards that come out. And there's a big old deck of like 30, 20 of these. I'm making up numbers because I don't remember the final number, but there's a lot. And so every single game, it's going to be completely different. And with the specialists, they're going to give you different abilities every single game. So part of it has that almost Dominion feel when the cards come out and you have to say like, okay, which of these cards work well together this game? And that's a big part of the puzzle. So looking at that, on the special buildings that give you special powers or bonus points at the end of the game to aim for or achieve, the shape is different on each one of those buildings. So that spatial puzzle changes every time. So what I like about it is you're not going to be able to just memorize like, this is the park that wins the game for me every time. You're going to have to look at what options are there, what came out, and how are we going to go from there. And one thing that's really nice about that is there's different complexities to these cards. And so you can choose an easy game if you're playing with a family, or you can choose a harder game where maybe it's harder to fit the things in that you might want. And you can, pick and choose what you want. 1 to 4 players, like Molly mentioned, mid-September release date, $29.95, 30 to 45 minute playtime. And what I really like is in the roll and write genre, I think it kind of started out as gateway family-friendly games. And this is a roll and write that is aimed squarely at your core kind of alpha gamer first mover demographic, where it's not a filler game. It's going to be a game that you could set out as the main game you're playing that night if you want. And it's really, really cool. And I love the work that the design team did.
And just to note there, if you can play Dinosaur Island, you could play Roar, right? So it's definitely, I would say, the same weight class. So if you're a fan, you'll like this one.
Cool. So next up, we're going to talk a little bit about one of our evergreen games, which is Machi Koro. And then we're going to have some exciting news right after this slide. So during the registration for this, we asked y'all kind of who is stocking Machi Koro. And it's really exciting for us because 75% of the people on this call are stocking Machi Koro product of some type. 40% of y'all are stocking all of them, which is great. That's good for us to hear. And it's very encouraging for us to see. So Machi Koro is our second best-selling game after The Mind. I know we have another thing happening in a little bit that's going to talk about our evergreen, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But this is a game that has been a stalwart evergreen for us and should be for y'all. If you're in that 25% that's not stocking it, please talk to your buyer. Mm-hmm. It is a game that you at least should try out. It is a super good gateway game. It was a Spiel des Jahres nominee. It's one that you should absolutely be looking at for your store. And if you're in the 75% that is stocking Machi Koro, got exciting news for you because we're going to talk. We have a new announcement. Actually, it's not new. I guess we made the announcement a little while ago, but it's a new game, which is Machi Koro.
One note there to any of y'all that don't have Machi Koro on your shelves. So we did release a new edition a couple of years ago. It's gorgeous. You have beautiful 3D molded coins, and those also, we have some cool stuff with the expansions too, so just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and if you stay tuned for the second half of this, I know that Danny will get into all of that, but if you're in that 25%, make sure you're talking to your buyer. It's a game, it's kind of a no-brainer to have on your shelf. Mm-hmm. It sells incredibly well. It's sold incredibly well for 6 years now, so it's not one that's going anywhere. So with that said, the exciting news is we have coming out this year on October 20th, Machi Koro 2, which, as you can probably guess by the number 2, is a sequel. This is a brand new standalone Machi Koro game, same price point at $29.95. What this really is it's Suganuma-san, the Japanese designer of the game, kind of taking a step back 6-7 years after his initial design work on Machi Koro and taking some lessons from it and wanting to come back and put a fresh take on the game. So I would not recommend stocking Machi Koro 2 in lieu of Machi Koro. I think Machi Koro is still the gateway game that you want to have for your families that are looking for something to play, looking for that gateway experience. Machi Koro 2 is a little bit more complicated, not much. But this is a game that sort of alpha gamers that maybe Machikoro is not exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for something that's a little bit, different, more randomized decks that's aimed a little bit more at that gamer weight class. That's what this is for. And the game is phenomenal. So I know 25% of you don't stock Machikoro, but I'm hoping that there's a good familiarity, because the main differences with Machikoro 2 are kind of lessons learned from Machikoro Legacy, which is in base Machikoro, you always have the same 4 landmarks that you're trying to build. And you can build them in any order, but once you've built them, you win the game. In Machikoro 2, you need to build 3 landmarks. And the landmarks are going to be publicly available. So they're not going to be your own private little landmarks anymore. There's going to be 4 landmarks always available. And you can build them in any order, but the order that you build them will change the price. So some landmarks are really expensive if they're the first landmark you built, but get cheaper if it's the second or third landmark that you've built. So they all have 3 prices on it. So if you're looking at the site, see the launch pad kind of there in the center. It's got the 45, 38, and 25 coins. That is a landmark. So the cost is going to change depending on if it's the first, second, or third landmark you built. But what's really neat about it is there's a race. There's only one launch pad. So if you want the ability that launch pad is going to give you, any player can build it if they have the coins for it and take it out of the marketplace. So it's really a race now to get the landmarks that you want. Other changes to the game has been a rebalancing of some of the cards, brand new art that's never been seen before. That's really going to change up the marketplace. And so the deck of cards is a little bit more randomized. It's so that, base Machikoro, you tend to see the same sorts of cards come out. Here, the numbers of cards are different. So not every card has an equal distribution within the deck. So more powerful cards come out a little bit less often. There's some encouragement to purchase the cards. It's a very, very clever game. If you've played Machikoro a lot, this is going to add a lot to it. It's going to feel very different. What I would say about Machikoro 2 is it feels a lot to me like what Plan B did with Azul Summer Pavilion or Stained Glass of Sintra, which is, this is very familiar, but also it's very different in what I'm trying to do, or some of the Power Grid expansion maps. So I would say this is a game, if someone loves Machikoro, enjoys Machikoro, it's a no-brainer. They're going to love this game. It's not necessarily going to replace Machikoro, which is something I really like. And like with the Azul spinoff games, very similarly, like you're going to want to play base Machikoro some, and you're going to want to play this some. And there are definitely things that can live on somebody's shelf if they're a fan of Machikoro. Mm-hmm. The base game, definitely Machikoro 1, I think lends itself more towards families, new gamers a little bit better. And this is what I would recommend if somebody's been playing Machikoro for a while and they really enjoy it. Same price point.
Yeah, to piggyback on what Nathan was saying, so the release date for this guy is a little bit different. We're looking at 10/20, so October 20th. So just a few weeks later, but this is the perfect time to start ordering for Q4. And this is just a no-brainer for anybody that likes Machikoro. Just get them this as a gift. It makes a whole ton of sense. A couple notes on this. This also includes the beautiful plastic 3D molded coins I was talking about with some little differences. And so there's just a lot being packed into the box. It's something that has a lot of value. And I think that anybody that gets it into their hand is going to be very happy with. And I truly think for any FLGS that has had success with Machikoro, it's just a done deal. Don't think about it. Other note on that, speaking of success, we've already sold through 12,000 units of this game. So very, very much another one that if you are interested, please try to get those orders in now, because we're definitely going to be out of this guy soon.
Yeah, and this is one that I mentioned, stock levels here, again, kind of full transparency. We printed what we thought was going to be a lot of this game, and then it was not a sufficient amount of this game. So we've already printed more. This game's leaving our factory now, so we feel pretty good about that October 20th release date. We printed more, and we think we're going to get lucky, and the factory is actually, we're waiting on confirmation of something that's already happened, which is a weird thing that happens when you're working in time zones. But hopefully we get the confirmation that we got more units in the container that left. We think that may have happened, which means we'll have a little bit of stock at release. If it didn't happen, we're probably going to be oversold. You may see some allocation at launch, but about 2-3 weeks later, there's going to be more stock coming in. That said, we don't think that we're going to have enough stock of this to get through the holiday season, which is unfortunately, with all of the production problems we're seeing in China, all the shipping problems, is kind of a common refrain you're probably going to see from a lot of publishers. But we do have more stock coming. We are not oversold on the full production we expect to have this Christmas. But it doesn't mean that we're going to have enough that you're going to be able to order it
so
in early December.
Even if you're hitting up Alliance right now and they're out of stock, please don't wait on the reorder. Go ahead and put your numbers in now so you're guaranteed that.
Yep.
All right. We have 2 games left to show y'all. So the next one we have up on the docket is a game we're very, very, very excited about. This is Trek 12. This is another import game, and it's Bruno Cathala. It's brilliant, very, very smart. This is another one we would definitely asterisk for this year from us. So in Trek 12, this is a little hiking roll and write. You're hiking the Himalayas. This is a very cool game. You can start in a beginner mode or different modes, and it's a campaign game. As you move along, the first puzzles are going to be relatively easy. They do combo and combine. You get new players, you get new tools as you move forward in the different envelopes that you're building on as you are playing the game. Similar to so many of Cathala's games, it's just really, really smart. And if any of y'all have ever played, which I'm sure you have, you know what I'm talking about. The second you sit down and play it, it's just this moment when Nathan and I were considering the game, was like, oh, this is really smart. This is very clever. And so, unsurprisingly, you never know when media reviews go out. You always want them to be good. They're really great. So just to give you an idea, I believe most of y'all are familiar with Shut Up and Sit Down, and this is an actually exact quote from them on Trek 12. I think Trek 12 is one of the better roll and writes I've ever played. That is an actual quote. So just to give you an idea, buzz is brimming already. This is due to come out November 10th, so a bit of a change there. But again, one to absolutely keep an eye on. It's a $29.95 SRP, and there are, like I mentioned, multiple games in this. So even for a roll and write, there's a lot of value there.
Yeah. So this is one that I could just talk about all day. It's so clever. What you're going to be doing on your turn is rolling 2 dice. And there are different things you can do with those dice. You can choose one, you can multiply them, you can subtract them, you can add them together. But you can only do that so many times. So on your board, if you want to add the dice together, you can only do that 4 times the entire game. And then there's some rules about how you write numbers. And what you're trying to do is effectively get clusters of either the same number together. So like a bunch of tens that are adjacent to one another as you're writing them, or to get kind of straights where the numbers ascend or descend. And you can draw a pattern between them as you're climbing the mountain. But the boards are all different. So there are certain areas of the board that are harder to climb, to do the mountain climbing. And so you can only write higher numbers or lower numbers on them. So it has this neat spatial puzzle going on where the rules are incredibly simple, but it's very thinky. You've got to be very measured in what you're doing. And when you first start the game, Molly mentioned multiple modes. There's going to be 3 parts of the mountain that you climb, kind of the easy trek up to the base of the mountain, and then when you actually start doing climbing, and so the mountains get harder. And you're going to be playing that in a sequence of 3 games. So you're going to climb the full mountain, kind of start at the base, get to the middle, and then ascend to the peak. And as you go, you're going to unlock some powers, some gear that Molly mentioned that will help you break rules in the game to climb. And you kind of have these interesting choices of like, do I want to win the first game, or do I want to maybe just go for gear so I can do better in further up the mountain where the points are higher? as you go, there are envelopes in the game that are going to unlock, and I'm going to spoil some stuff for you, so I'm very sorry. You could just like mute me right now if you don't want it. But as you hit certain objectives or goals throughout the game, like hit a high score, you're going to be able to open up an envelope. So it's going to be almost like achievement envelopes, where as you hit conditions, you open them up, and these envelopes are going to have additional gear. It's going to have guides that can help you go up the mountain. It's going to unlock stuff for a solo mode where you play against an AI. It's going to unlock new AI. It's even going to unlock new riding pads. So these riding pads that help you, that are represent the mountains, you're going to get new mountains you can climb. You can get new ascensions. What I would say is it's almost like you're getting within one box. It's sort of like getting Welcome to and multiple of the Welcome to expansion pads in one box. So it's not just one mountain you're climbing. You're going to get to unlock more and more, and it's going to keep the game fresh. 1 to 5 players is sort of the recommendation, but like most roll and writes, it's like 1 to infinity. Like there's no reason you can't play with more players. It's 15 minutes for a single climb. If you're playing kind of the more campaigny mode, it's probably 45 minutes to play a game. And it's one of the things I really love about the game is you could sit down and just make it a one-shot roll and write. Just go for it, play a little game, and then you're done. But if you want it to be a meatier game, you can make it a 45-minute experience for your friends where it's a longer game where you're not just making a decision for right now. You might be making a decision, maybe I'm going for a lower score, but I want to grab some gear on my way up the mountain, so I'm doing better at the top. It's so clever. The price point at $29.95 I think is absolutely fantastic for what you're getting in the box. It's such a clever game. We have quite a bit coming in. We're just now starting to collect orders on it, so we don't know. But this is one, talk to your rep about it. This to me is, like, Welcome to is a game I really enjoy. This to me is a game that if your customers have enjoyed Welcome to, this is, I think, a better game than that. I think it's very similar in certain ways, but it adds a lot more uniqueness, a lot more variability.
And the ramping from beginner to expert, which is a huge selling point of it.
Exactly. So this is one, just make sure you're bringing some copies in. I think Bruno Cathal's name, like Molly mentioned, is something that helps sell the game itself. And I think it's just a very, very, very clever game.
And we do have future expansion plans for this game. So this is very much just an ecosystem that we really can see living in y'all's shelves for years to come. It's something that absolutely asterisks this guy.
Yeah, this is one that, like, not to spoil stuff, but there's already like a South American version where, it's going to be different things set there that may be coming out next year, and some campaign stuff that we'll have some news on for early next year. You could probably Google Trek 12+1 and it will tell you a little bit about that, but that's a cool story-based standalone, or not standalone game, but that works with this one where you can actually go on a story that takes place over multiple games, but really clever. Now, the last game, talking about very clever, this is That Time You Killed Me. This is my favorite game to play that we've ever published. And I'm not just saying that. I really like this game. Now, you're going to notice it says TBA on the street date and the order date and everything. This is finishing production now. We are threading a needle to try to get this out to you by late November, early December of this year. It might not happen because everything is bad in the shipping channels. But we think that we're going to be able to get this game out in that late November, early December timeframe. We will let people know as fast as we can if we think it's not going to happen. So we're going to be very, very transparent with you about this.
Just a note there, this is finishing up at the factory, so we're looking very good as of now. So the street date we're sending out to people is actually December 1st, and we do feel good about that. So
we do. And like I said, we're going to be super transparent. So if we can't hit that, we'll let you know. So That Time You Killed Me, it's $39.95. It's a 2-player game. It's a 2-player abstract game. In it, one of you's invented time travel, and the other one murdered the inventor and stole credit. And you're trying to figure out who's who. So you don't know. One of you's the murderer and one of you's the inventor of time travel. It's exciting to have invented time travel, but probably sad that you got murdered and no one knows that you did it. So in the game, you're going to be trying to get rid of your opponent's pawns. And the way you're going to do that is by pushing them around the board, trying to eliminate them. But there are 3 boards. You can kind of see that in that graphic. It's past, present, and future. You can jump between timelines. So you have to always be thinking 4-dimensionally in the game, because just because a player is not set up on the past board to do damage to you, they can come back in time from the present board to the past and potentially push you off the board and get rid of one of your pawns. They could jump to the future and do the same. The base game is fairly straightforward, chess-like game where you're moving between these time frames, having to think like, are they set up in the present to hurt me in the future? Or are they set up in the past to hurt me in the present? Or are they set up in the future to hurt me in the present? Because all of this has to be kept up with at the same time. As you go, you're going to be unlocking boxes. And again, we're going to kind of get into spoiler territory. But if you look at that image to the right, you can see some of the pieces you unlock. There's going to be elephants and statues and trees, and they're all going to work differently. So like for the trees, if you plant a tree in the past, you're going to plant a seed in the past. It's going to immediately turn into a bush in the present and a full-grown tree in the future. And depending on where players are sitting, you could kill them by doing that. You could push a tree over on top of them. There are elephants that can push you around. So like if you have statues, when the statues come out, they're going to be in the same spot in all 3 time zones. But if you push it in the present, it'll push that statue in the future as well and can wind up squishing a player piece. But if you push it in the present, it doesn't move it in the past. So it's got this neat little game where you're having to pay attention to what your player can do, your opponent can do on any of the 3 boards. I am a big like chess player. Big. I'm not great at it, but I enjoy it. And this is very evocative of that with a simple rule set. It is incredibly, incredibly clever. There's 4 boxes. The designer of the game is also a comedian / sitcom writer, and he's written an incredibly funny, whimsical story that you're going to be unlocking throughout. The 4th box is going to unlock a bunch of achievement envelopes so that when players do things like kill an opponent 5 times in a specific way in a game, you're going to open that up. It's going to give you objectives, player powers, new ways to play the game. So the way I describe it is it's a campaign with a story, but it also teaches you the game as you go along as it gets more complicated. And by the end, it kind of is like Santorini, where by the time you've opened everything up, you've got 40 or 50 player powers that are going to change the way the game plays every time. You're going to get cards that break the rules of the game so that every time there's a different way that you need to win the game, or a way you can win the game beyond just eliminating your opponent's pawns. It's a very, very special game. The art is phenomenal. I don't like to toot our own horn and like tell you, but Jordy Ross is the artist. It's a game we signed a couple of years ago and we didn't know how it was going to come together, and it came together, I think, beautifully. I can wax poetically all day about it.
As a couple of notes, just to add additionally to the art, this artist is a professional editorial artist. It is absolutely the most top of the line art we have ever had. And this was a game that we really, really, really just wanted to put a whole lot into because we knew how special the game itself was. Great 3D molds too as you move along that are very just fantastical and cool and kind of have a surrealist aspect to it. And just to add additionally, the narrative really is what makes this really, really, really stand out. Having a professional sitcom writer being the designer definitely helps. And so this guy is getting into reviewers' hands right now. But to give you an idea about the reception since Danny announced this game and what makes this game special and different, even for us, we do a lot of foreign localizations. I have quite literally had 7 foreign partners, some we've worked with, some that we haven't, write me out of excitement about wanting to play and evaluate this game for localization. So there are certain games, again, that we release. We only release great games, but sometimes there's just a groundswell of enthusiasm and excitement over one of our games, and this is definitely one of them. It's just been jaw-dropping and exciting and definitely in line with what we were hoping, but it's a special game.
Yep. And I think that's it. I think we can open up for a Q&A for about 6 minutes or so.
Let us know if y'all have any questions. Just ask Danny in the chat and we can answer them. Or if anyone's feeling shy, also feel free to ask us later. Hit us up at support. There are many, many ways to get in contact with us. I know there was a whole lot of things we discussed today, so there's plenty of time to digest. Please do your research, look up some of these amazing reviews. If you have any questions about media stuff, you can also contact Danny.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to spoil what Danny's going to talk about, but we do have a retail support page that has a lot of graphics you can use. And Brian is sales@pandasaurusgames.com. He can get you any information that you need about these products. We also have a retailer Discord channel that you can join and chat with us anytime you have a question like, hey, is more of this game coming into stock soon? And we'll get you that information.
Please join. It's actually, our Discord channel is a very fun place, thanks to Danny. So it's a cool place to live and be a part of the Pandasaurus community. Additionally, notes that any of you guys may be relevant is that we do have professional photos taken of all of our games. We have professional videos made of most of our titles. So we are here very, very much to support all of y'all in absolutely any way that we can to make your lives easier and to ensure that any Pandasaurus game that you take a chance on is absolutely a success for every single retailer out there. We love our FLGSs so much. And please just know that we are eager to please and we are always here. Great.
Sounds good. Thanks everybody again for your time.
Thanks everybody for your time and tuning in. There was a bunch of you guys. We are very flattered and excited. So keep an eye out. Hopefully Danny or Brian can say hi at Gen Con or Origins. So
cool. Bye everybody. Thanks so much. And stick around because I know in 6-ish, 7-ish minutes, Danny and Brian are going to walk you through sales strategies for some of our evergreens that you should also know about. Because while new games are obviously very exciting, stuff like The Mind and Machikoro and all the games they're going to talk about, the original Dinosaur Island, you know, obviously those are the bread and butter of our company. And we know for your stores, those evergreens are the most important thing for you. Those games that you know are going to consistently sell year after year. So I know Brian and Danny are going to have a whole lot of information to share here. So, you know, grab some coffee, stretch your legs, and then make sure you come back because they are going to help you with some stuff that's worked for us in the past. And also make sure that you are aware of games that you should stock that you might not know how good sales have been on because they flew under your radar. And they'll also sort of let you know what stock levels are looking like for us for the year. Obviously, it's been challenging, but we've moved heaven and earth to get as much stock as possible this year of these evergreens. So be sure to stick around. And like Molly mentioned, any questions, hit us up whenever you feel like it, and we'll get back to you. And Brian and Danny will see y'all in a few minutes.
Hi, y'all. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Brian Lewis, and I'm the sales manager at Pandasaurus Games. And joining me also is the wonderful Danny Lowe, who handles all things marketing for Pandasaurus. If you don't know her, you must be living under a rock because she seems to be everywhere and everyone knows her, whereas you may not have met me before. Thanks all for joining us. I saw a lot of names of people that I have chatted with via email or phone. Thank you all for joining us today. If I haven't met you, I'm looking forward to the day we can. I'll be at Gen Con, I'll be at Origins. So if you happen to be at any of those shows, please stop by the booth, say hi, introduce yourself. I love to put names and faces together, stores, etc. So again, thanks for joining us. Today we're going to talk a little bit about Pandasaurus games, evergreens, marketing, how we can help you hopefully move our product, and some tips and tricks that we think and hope will help you. So with that being said, let's move on to our first slide. First thing we're going to talk about today is Dinosaur Island. Now, a lot of you, probably all of you, have heard of this game. It's been around since about 2000, came out late 2017, and sold out immediately. Huge buzz. Tom Vassell gave it the seal of excellence, which just all of a sudden just sold all the copies in existence. And we had to wait for more. We were a little taken aback by that. A couple things have happened with that title since the initial release that you may not be aware of, so I want to make sure you know that because I know you can't, as busy shop owners, see everything that happens all the time. So the first thing I want to point out is that the MSRP on that title has dropped. It was originally $79.95 when it came out. The MSRP now is $59.95, so a $20 savings. We found that has really helped with the sales of the title. That price point is a little more palatable to consumers than $79.95, but you're still getting everything in the box that was originally in the game. So we actually added some things. In the original game, we had just one type of meeple, and it was the Triceratops. Now there are three different types of meeples. You've got the Triceratops, the Velociraptor, and the T-Rex. So those are your herbivores, carnivores, large carnivores, and people have really responded to that. So those are included at the lower price point. It's sold over 50,000 units since its release, and it still continues to sell strong. It's a lot of fun. Oh, and by the way, I'm also one of the designers, so I guess I'm a little biased, but sales have continued to be strong for us with this game. A lot of people are asking, hey, is the new one coming out, Dinosaur World, is that going to replace Dinosaur Island? Honestly, I don't think it will. I think they can live on the same shelf, pun intended, that because they play differently. So what's going to happen with Dinosaur World is people are going to go, oh, this is familiar. The familiarity of getting the DNA and using my scientists, but the new stuff will set it apart. So people that love Dinosaur Island, I think, will also love Dinosaur World, and I think they can both live together in harmony. And I think they will both sell well for you. All right, and moving on to our next title, which probably everyone has heard of, but just in case you aren't aware of this edition, the Machikoro 5th Anniversary Edition. This came out about 2 years ago, and it is a 5th Anniversary Edition, has plastic molded coins, revised cards. They're a little bit bigger than they were in the original copy, and we've cleaned up some of the text and fonts so it looks a little more modern, a little more clean. And this particular game also has the nice plastic insert where you can keep your base game, and if you buy the expansions, you can put those in with this game as well. This game has sold hundreds of thousands of copies, so if you're not stocking it, you're really missing out on an easy sell. We get so many families that tell us how much they love this game. It's really an easy sell. And one of the things we'll talk about in a little bit is demo space. I know some people say, well, I don't have demo space. I can't run a demo. One of the things you could do with Machikoro, which we've seen success at conventions, is you just have a small handful of cards in the dice. You put out two or three of the dice and you say, okay, I'm going to show you how to play Machikoro. Put out a 1, 3, 4, 5, 6 card, roll the die, say, okay, now I've matched this. So any number, any card that has this number, I get to activate that card. Yeah, and so I get to take a coin for each one I have. And then I pass the die to the customer and say, okay, now you roll and you try. Get them involved, uh, get them to see how easy it is to learn and to teach. And we've seen great success with that. Danny, I think you get a lot of, you're in the social media aspect, so you get a lot of people posting about this game. What have you heard, or what are people saying?
Well, this one, it's accessible to such a wide range of players. It was one of the first games that I ever played when I joined the hobby. So it really kicks off the love of modern board games for a lot of people. Uh, Parents play it with their kids, college students play it in groups. It really is just a gateway game, and it's shown that by reaching evergreen status for us. Um, they love the combos of cards, how it's almost like a casino feel when your cards activate all at once and you get like armfuls of coins from the
Yeah,
bank and from other people. It creates some really cool moments with easy to learn rules.
yeah, for sure. Speaking of Machikoro, when we go to our next slide, you'll see a little bit more Machikoro. And these are the Machikoro expansions. Now, some of you may be familiar with the older versions that were co-published with IDW, where there were the small skinny boxes, and one had the Harbor expansion, and then one had the Millionaire's Row expansion. Well, what we've done is we've taken both of those expansions and put them into one box. You'll see on the front it says Machikoro Plus, and then above it says Harbor and Millionaire's Row expansion. So these are expansions that just give more variety to the game. It adds a fifth player. That was something that a lot of people were like, hey, I have 5 people in my family, and so always has to sit out. Well, now you can get the expansion. It'll add the cards for the fifth player. It has variable setups for this particular, when you add these expansions, which just gives a ton of replayability, new strategies. Some people will say, well, I play Machikoro, so and so always goes for this card. Well, in this particular setup, when you're playing with the expansions, they come out a little more randomly, if you will, and allows, you don't have one dominant strategy. You get some bonus cards that give personal player powers, and in this, you're going to get the Harbor expansion, the Millionaire's Row expansion, some more plastic coins. Again, the revised art, a little bit bigger card size. And again, this one has sold hundreds of thousands of copies as well. The when people, I think, are sometimes afraid to carry expansions because they don't sell as well. This one for us has been the exception to the rule. This sells just as well as Machikoro. So if you're not carrying at least a couple of these to go with your case of Machikoro, I think you're missing out on that upsell. Oh, did you know you can, get this, and these expansions will add even more play to the game. And that way, because a lot of people don't know that these exist, that these expansions exist. So it's a great way to get them to buy 2 games at once. Oh, you really need this expansion, fit those
Yeah, and
together.
this expansion, in fan conversations that I kind of peek into, uh, it's repeatedly touted as one that they will never choose to play without if it's available. So people who have the expansion view it as absolutely required, for all future
Hmm.
playthroughs. So they are quite fond of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this again, I won't play standard Machikoro without these expansions just because I love them so much. So if you haven't carried this one before or were unsure of it, just order a copy from Alliance to go with yours, and see, let people know it's there. I guarantee it's going to sell. Um, Again, adds a fifth player, still the 30-minute time play and the new fancy coins. And again, these will fit in the original box as well. So if you want to put everything together in one box, they will fit. And
One
moving on
last
to our,
thing
oh, Yeah,
One
go
last
ahead.
thing before we move on. A lot of these new varieties that these expansions added were actually implemented into Machikoro 2. So, which we mentioned in the previous presentation. So the designer took all of the player feedback, really honed in on the aspects of the entire Machikoro line that fans loved, and put it into Machi 2. So the fact that aspects of this expansion, fifth player, the different setup modes made it into the sequel says a lot about it.
Yeah, for sure. And moving on to our next slide, Machikoro Legacy. Now, this one has been out of stock for about, oh gosh, I want to say 6 to 8 months. Issues with shipping, so it finally just came in. We are running, unfortunately, already running low on stock on this one. So if you need it, please place an order with your Alliance rep. Uh, they should have it in stock. If not, they can get it from us for sure. But again, I expect that we will sell out of this one before Christmas, and we won't get a restock on it before Christmas. So if this is something you're interested in carrying, again, please reach out to your Alliance rep. Now, Machikoro Legacy came out at Gen Con 2019. It was very well received. And a lot of people ask, well, what is the difference? Well, Machikoro Legacy is really a intro legacy game. There are going to be 10 campaigns in the game. After each game, you're going to change something just a little, and it'll tell you exactly how to do it in the game. And after each one, you'll build upon and build upon until you have the 10th game. And after the 10th game, you will have a completely playable game with with what you've unlocked during this. Tom Vassell, when he reviewed this, actually said that he prefers this version over Machikoro. I think they both have a place on the table just because of they play differently, because there are some new mechanics in Machikoro Legacy that aren't in Machikoro. Um, so I think there is space for the two. Um, like I said, 10 games in there. And the cool thing is, and if you have kids, even adults, honestly, love the mystery boxes. You've got 6 boxes, you see them on the screen there, and you're like, oh, I don't know what's inside. I can't wait to see what's inside. And you open it up, you're like, oh, that's really cool. You've got your town boards, everyone's got flag tokens, and there's a sticker sheet in there. You've got some dice. The plastic coins make their return in this one. And one of the questions we do have quite frequently is, can I play with these cards in Machikoro, or can I use Machikoro in Legacy? The short answer is no. They do play completely different. Like, the cards wouldn't be compatible with each version. Now, if you're very creative and you want to try, go ahead. We don't recommend it, but do what you want. It's your game, right? Um, but there are a lot of new cards in Machikoro Legacy that you do not see in Machikoro.
I will
What have you
say,
heard, Danny?
so after vaccinations have been more widely accessible, we've seen a lot more people being able to finish the campaigns that they started 18 months ago. And they're absolutely loving the mystery boxes 5 and 6 specifically. I haven't gotten that far in my campaign because our friends are still kind of split up a little bit. But I know what's inside. I've peeked. I cheated. One of the perks of being a staff member. But the story that unfolds has a really nice ending that is
Yeah,
enjoyable by all.
it's super cute. Um, One thing I will say, and this is not Machikoro related, this is pandemic related. I would just want to point out, 18 months ago, this was not as white. Uh, After 18 months, this has really gotten white. The stress of shipping has not helped. But we'll talk a little bit more about availability a little bit later. And we're going to move on to our next slide. We did have some polls before we started, and one of them we asked was, do you carry our card games? And 47% of you said you carry most titles, 24% said none, 20% said the game or the mind, and 10% said the game and the mind. So for those of you carrying our titles, thank you so much. For those of you that are not carrying our titles, you're leaving money on the table. In reality, these games sell so well for us. If we move on to our next slide, we've got the mind. Now, the mind has sold, I want to say, over 500,000 units. So it's doing something right. It's got a great price point. It's $12.95. And again, this is one of those games where you don't have to have a demo space in order to demo this game. You can do it right at the counter. Super easy to teach, right? Everyone gets, you give a card to the customer, you have a card, and you say, okay, the idea of the game is to lay down our cards in numerical order without talking to each other or without communicating via any body language, etc. And so the customer just kind of looks at you, goes, huh? And then you go, yeah, we just have to be in the right sync. We have to be in sync in order to do this. So we're holding our cards, and you say, okay, and you just kind of look at each other, and then eventually someone just goes, oh, okay, I'm going to lay down my card, and then continue. Again, very easy to demo. This was actually, it's sold over 1 million copies worldwide of all the different editions, and it's a great game to play with. I say non-gamers, people that normally don't play games. I've had so many families reach out to me and say, "Oh my gosh, we play this every week. Wednesday night is the mind night," and so it's just one of those games where you really should carry it. Now, I know there's been some stock issues with this game over the past few months. That's something we hopefully will be addressing in September. We do have a bunch coming in. There have been just lots of issues getting the games out. These are actually printed in Germany. And there have been a lot of problems getting stuff out of Germany and into port, delays. And so we should have more in stock. So I would recommend that you contact your Alliance rep, put some on order so that they know how many people are wanting this, because they rely on you to get information and data on how many of the game they should carry of the mind. So please let them know you're interested, and then that way we can get it to their different warehouses and into your stores for Q4.
Yeah, planning ahead, there are a couple key holidays that the mind, but really all of our card games work really well with. So there's Christmas. These make excellent stocking stuffers. They're about this big. They just slide them right into that stocking. And they're affordable for you and for your customers. They're accessible to non-gamers, to experienced players. There's some even for younger kids as well. But also, you might not think about it, but Valentine's Day is actually a great time to promote the mind. I've heard so many stories from people who played this as their first date, because it is a social game. It's an activity where you're trying to connect with the other person, make eye contact, you bond when you're totally in sync. And so I mean, really, I don't know how many people who have told me, we played this on our first date or our first month, and now we're married. Not to say that every person will get married after playing this. It's not a miracle worker, but right. It is a great sell for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, ring not included, right?
Right.
So again, talk to your Alliance rep, get that on order, because when it does restock, we expect it to sell very well. Hopefully have enough to get us through the fourth quarter, but it all depends on how y'all place your orders. So please get in contact with your Alliance rep for that. Moving on to our next game is The Game. This one has been around for years as well, continues to sell well. We've sold over 1 million copies of this worldwide. It was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres, and it was a top 10 game nominated solo game for the Dice Tower. Some of you may be familiar with the original version of the game, which came out with IDW, and there was a skull on the front, and So what we did was we commissioned Quancha Mariah to redesign the art into a more colorful, really incredible looking table presence game. And it has done very well for us. So with the game, very easy to play. And again, this is one of those games where if you don't have a demo space, this is a very easy game to demo with a little bit of counter space. It's literally you can take out the cards. I can hand Danny 6 cards. I take 6 cards. I put out the ones and the hundreds, and I just tell the customer, okay, the idea is on your turn, you can play 1 or 2 cards. You can put them either in ascending or descending order on any of these 4 piles. The thing is, we're working cooperatively together to get rid of all the cards in the deck. So I might play, and the way we work cooperatively is we can communicate, but in very limited terms. I can't be specific, but I can be generic. So I can say, hey, Danny, I'd really prefer if you don't play on the 1 stack. I've got a card that really fits there. And Danny might say great, or she might say, nope, I really need to play on that 1 stack. And to me, that goes, okay, maybe she has 2 and I have 3. Okay, so I'm going to let her have that. So there is communication. This is really great for families because it really encourages working together, communicating with each other, learning how to say something without giving away too much information. And again, really easy to demo. Let them play. You play 2 cards. Let them play 2 cards. Draw back up. You play 2 more. It literally can be demoed in under 30 seconds. And that person will walk out with this game in their hand. I've done it so many times at conventions. Have you played this? No. Do you have 15 seconds? Well, let me show you. Oh my gosh, I want that. And then they get it. So very family friendly. I've played this with my family and they love it as well. They love card games, so this was something new that they hadn't heard of. I think what we become accustomed to is we see these games all the time, but we don't actually realize, hey, there are a lot of people who have not seen this game before. They're walking into my store for the first time, and I have seen it every day, 365 days a year. This person is new and has never seen it. So just keep that in mind. If you're not carrying this, you should be carrying it. It's a great stocking stuffer. It's an easy impulse buy, and it's easy to demo. Danny, you had wanted to talk about the artwork, I think.
Yeah, I've been chatting about it in chat. But Quanchai made it represent the progression of life from the smallest little atoms to flora to actual cities. So each time you move up a series of 10, the suit changes. And so it's all very abstract. You probably wouldn't be able to tell that if I hadn't just explained it to you. But it's very eye-catching. The other thing I wanted to mention is my favorite part of the game, which sets it apart from just a simple count up to 100, is that depending on whether you're counting up or down, if you play a card that is exactly 10 digits away, you can break the rule of ascending or descending to kind of go backwards and reset your progress by 10. And so you can do that and set off combos too. Like increase the stack, but suddenly you've played a matching number and can go backwards. So it's ultimately lower than the number you previously played. And working together and communicating in code to set up those combos is really satisfying.
Yeah, and it is really one of those games that does play in 20 minutes, like the box says. I have beat the game a few times, and there's just something so satisfying about getting through that final card in the deck. You're like, yes, I did it. It's so awesome. I love that, and I have never had a person say I did not like the game. So hopefully, if you haven't carried it, you will carry it in the future. This is, again, one of those games that is out of stock in a lot of places right now, but is coming in. So the game and the mind are printed at the same factory in Germany. So they are coming in on the same boat. So we do expect those in September. So get your orders in for that, because we'd love for you to have these this holiday season in Q4, because this is a great Thanksgiving game. This is a great game for people to play around the table at Thanksgiving. and at Christmas. All right, moving on to our next. We did ask a question of those people who had registered beforehand. Do you have a web store? And this is some interesting information. 52% of you said you shipped and do pickup sales through your web store. 21% of you said you have a website with no sales, so more of like a marketing arm, if you will. 16% of you said nope, you do pick up sales through your website, and 5% do ship sales, where 6% have no website. Well, Danny's here to talk a little bit about what you can do even if you don't have a website. So we've got social media. Websites aren't the be all end all. A lot of people go there first, but we've got Instagram accounts, Facebook accounts, Snapchat, TikTok, all of those things that you can and hopefully will continue to use to promote your store. But Danny has some awesome materials and resources for you in order to make it hopefully easier for you to do this.
Yeah. If we could go to the next slide, I can show you one example of these resources. So one of the things we made in the past year is a landing page on our website for you all. So pandasaurusgames.com/pages/retailers. That is the home base on our website for you. On this page, we have Brian's information and also a whole slew of resources for each one of our games from our existing catalog and all of the games that Molly and Nathan went over in the last presentation. So we keep this updated. As soon as we have more resources, I add them up there. And so typically what you can find is easily searchable game title, price point, player count, age, SKU, and also a press kit or a media kit, which I see some of you use already. That's awesome. In these media kits, they're Dropbox folders. So I have folders within folders, and one of the first things you can find there are photos, which is what we're showing on screen right now. So this is a photo gallery of the Loop. These are high quality, 300 DPI resolution photos that you are free to download, slap on your logo, use however you want. We have beautiful edited photos with a white background for you to use on your web store. They're staged to show off the components, but we also have a wide variety of more creative mid-game shots that will give players a better feel for what's inside the box, what they can expect, what the gameplay will look like on the table, so they're impressed by the table presence. And you can also use these photos if you don't have a website. If you're not soliciting sales through your website, you can put these on a TV screen and just do a slideshow throughout your store, or pull them up on your computer and use that as a demo. So you don't have to rely solely on the box back, which, doesn't give a snapshot, a zoomed in look on every single component. So typically we make these photos available within the month prior to release. So the Loop releases soon. We added these photos last week or so. They're already up there available to download. I hope you use them. We use them for ourselves. So they're something we're already providing. We decided to make them easily accessible to you as well. The next thing you might have already seen before our presentations and between our presentations, we commission videos for, I'd say, most of our titles. Not all of our small $12 card games get videos, but we do try to make these little highlight sizzle reels for our big box games. And they're not how to plays. They don't get into the minutia of the rules, but they do give you and your customers a better feel for the theme, the tone, and the components of the game, because they're not renders. We do actually send a physical copy of the game to our videographer. So he plays the game, we send him the script, and he uses the actual components, and like we'll roll the dice, we'll flip the cards. So they're really dynamic and gets you a look at the game. Really quick, I see a question in chat about UPC codes. Those are not in the media kits, but they are on that resource page. We have a spreadsheet linked to easily import our whole catalog up into your website. You don't have to use it to import, but the UPC codes are found in that spreadsheet for whatever you need. It also, well, I don't know if it includes case size, but most of them are 6. Our card games are 10. Someone else asked that earlier. Moving on, our current slide features social media ready images. So our graphic designer, Stevo, who is in the chat earlier, I asked him to make these digital graphics for most of our new games. We started this in fall 2020. So prior to that, there probably won't be many social media graphics for those titles, but for all of our newer titles from this year, they have a specific format for Facebook, which is what you see on the screen right now, a square for Instagram feeds, and a vertical one for stories. There's also Twitter headers and Facebook cover images if you want to switch to those. And we try to do 2 different versions. So what you can see now on the screen are pre-order versions, but then we also have a version for when the game is finally released. So they look slightly different. He is talented and pays attention to detail, so it's not just the simple changing of the text. They will have a different feel to them too, to really make sure that it captures your customer's eyes. Yeah. And there's the link again on the screen, pandasaurusgames.com/pages/retailers. If you have any other requests for digital needs, I know some of you have TVs in your store. These images and graphics should work for those, but if you ever need something custom made, feel free to reach out and we'll see what we can do.
Right. What about, Danny, those videos, the sizzle videos? Are those available?
Yeah, those are also in the media kits. In the same Dropbox folder, you'll see a folder for photos, videos, social media, other things if it's applicable. So we have MP4, and from requests from other retailers, we actually have a few different versions available in the folders. So we have, by default, what you've seen looping through has our logo, has our website, and has player info such as count, ages, playtime, and also MSRP. We know not all of you prefer to have MSRP on your marketing materials, so we've made a version available without that. And then there's a third version that has no branding at all. So when you download the MP4s, you can slap on your own logo, upload it to your YouTube channel. That's perfectly fine. On the retailer resource page, we have a couple YouTube playlists linked if you prefer that. I know every store is different and you all use different tools, so we try to make these resources, these options available to you. And then, yeah, we have some examples rolling right now. Very cute. Awesome. Yeah, I think that's that. Okay.
Well, I think we can move on to our next. We did ask another question, and that was, do you use demo copies? So 74% of you said you had a gaming space and demos. 11% of you said you had a library. 8% said you had gaming space, and 6% said no. So same kind of correlation to the website. 6% of you didn't have websites, and it looks like 6% don't have gaming space, which I understand. Some stores you just don't have the space for it. So we could use those tools to, like the demos at the counters are probably the most effective ways to demo when you don't have demo space. So recommend getting some demo copies of the game in the mind. Another one that's not on here but still sells really well if you haven't looked at it is Illusion. I have a store that has contacted me several times. They sell hundreds of copies of that game a year, and they're just a regular game store. They're not like a mega game store. They're just a regular game store, but their staff loves that game. And that's something that is very important. When your staff is passionate about a game, you tend to sell more of that game. It's just because, oh, let me show you this game. I really love it. And they play it and they're passionate about it and they talk about it and it sells. Another thing, if you don't have demo space, one of the things to just we take for granted is get the game in the customer's hands. If you see them over at the shelf and they're looking at Machikoro and they're just kind of standing there, they're just looking over the titles, you just walk over and say, oh my gosh, I saw you were looking at Machikoro. Hand them the box. Make them hold it, right? And then show them the back, because studies have shown that people that take and actually hold a product are more willing or more are more prone to buy than people that just stare at shelves. So, get involved with your customer, take it off the shelf, put it in their hand. These are things you can do that if you don't have demo space are just as effective. So, make sure your staff knows the games. I know you all do this. And when they're passionate, they'll talk about it. Recommendations. You may not have a demo space, but you could maybe have a shelf talker that says, so and so loves this game. Staff employee pick this game. Machikoro. Why? Family friendly, easy to learn. These are things customers want to hear. When they come in and they see hundreds of games, they can be overwhelmed, especially if they're new to the hobby. We take for granted that everyone coming in our store has been in the hobby for years, when we know, because we see it all the time, we're getting more and more gamers every year into stores that have not set foot in a game store before, and so they're a little overwhelmed. So anything you can do to make it a little easier for them, whether it's a little shelf talker, whether it's coming up and say, hey, what kind of game are you looking for? Oh, something to play with your family? Let me recommend Machikoro. Here's why. So there are still things you can do without demos. Of course, demos help, because they can sit and play a few rounds. But if they don't, there are still things you can do.
Absolutely. I
All
don't know how
right.
many people
And
walk into a bookstore with no idea, no direction what I want, but having the staff recommends, with or without elaboration, I almost always leave the store with that book in my bag. And I think the same
yeah,
applies to games.
for sure. And then moving on to our last slide. These are some helpful links. I am going to just say right here that if you have any questions, last minute questions, anything you want to ask, please start typing in that chat. We will, address that. And if we can't address it right away, we will, be glad to get back to you. You can go into the Discord channel for Alliance, this presentation, and ask your questions there. Or if you go to our own personal Discord at Pandasaurus, we do have a retail channel. If you aren't part of that, please join. We post links about upcoming or information about upcoming releases, pre-orders that you might not be aware of that you can get through Alliance, etc. So please, any of those things you can use to reach out to us. You can also reach out to us in other ways. You can send an email to me. My name is Brian, and I'm the sales manager for Pandasaurus. And the email is sales@pandasaurusgames.com. So you can reach out to me. I try to respond within 24 hours. I'll be honest with you, this past week and the next couple weeks are making it really tough because we've got Wild Space and The Loop and the Kickstarter for Dinosaur World and Dinosaur World shipping. So it is a little a lot right now. So if I take a little bit longer, please forgive me. My phone number is there as well. You can text me at that number as well if you just want to drop quick text. Hey, can I get more? Is more mind on the way? I can send you a quick text back saying we expect that in September. So please use those to your advantage. We have our retailer page, pandasaurusgames.com/pages/retailers, which Danny talked about, all the wonderful stuff at your fingertips to help your store sales and your social media presence. And then for social media, the Linktree link there will also help you out. Danny, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think you wrapped it up nicely with a bow. But if you have
Okay.
any questions throughout the day, I'll be hanging out in the Alliance Discord and also the Pandasaurus Discord server. If you have any questions or want to give us feedback, we're happy to chat.
For sure. Yep. And again, just drop an email, sales at Pandasaurus Games, text me, call me, whatever. Just, if you have any questions, or reach out to your helpful Alliance rep who will have that information as well.